Brandon Miller decided to bring this conversation right back to life with the decision that they made at the start of the game tonight against Arkansas. First and foremost, Alabama beat Arkansas 86-83 at home. But the story and the talking point of this game was what happened at the introductions. We know what has led into this, right? We don't need to rehash it. We don't need to go over the details. That story has been beaten to death. It has literally been the biggest talking point in all of sports across any sport for the last 5 days. And what Brandon Miller did was, as they came out through the teammate tunnel, the line during introductions, he came up, got to the end, put his arms out, and was pretended to be frisked by one of the walk-ons at the end. This is, Jeff, apparently something that they have been doing all season long. It is something that we see at different levels of the sport. It is not an uncommon occurrence, but the lack of awareness, the lack of any kind of sense, the lack of decency to understand that doing that, what looks very much like you're getting patted down to see if you have a weapon on you, given the circumstances of what happened with Alabama, Brandon Miller, Nate Oats, and this program, is something to me that is entirely unacceptable.
Yeah, and Nate Oats said that afterwards. He said it's not appropriate. It's been addressed, and I can assure you it will definitely not happen again for the remainder of the year. You know, listen, they should have been talked to about it. Obviously, the walk-on Adam Cottrell and Brandon Miller certainly should have known better. It's just another kind of PR nightmare here for this program that's dealt with a bunch of them here lately. And, you know, again, at some point, you know, they've got to be on top of all this. They've got to be on. And if I'm Brandon Miller, I gotta look in the mirror at this point and say everything I do right now is going to be scrutinized. Everything, whether it's pregame introductions, whether it's every social media post I do. We're watching. Everybody's watching every move you make. Just the reality right now. So Brandon, just be smart. You can't let this happen. Adam Cottrell, man, what are you thinking? What do you think? And I've heard nothing but great things. I talked to people around that program today. Great kid. Made a mistake. But unfortunately, it's been mistake upon mistake upon mistake. So it obviously gets magnified a lot more.
Yeah, look, this level of stupidity and indifference to me is absolutely unacceptable. There's three things that you need out of Brandon Miller and out of this Alabama program right now, given everything that's happened: common sense, compassion, and decency. Considering the fact that a player in this program was killed with a weapon that was brought to the scene by Brandon Miller. You have to understand that in this context, right? Compassion, common sense, and decency are the only things that you need to do. And this was the exact opposite of that. Imagine you are Janae Harris's parents. Imagine the image that you are seeing is Brandon Miller, after all of this happened, who was the one guy that could have prevented that death from occurring, or not the one of the people that could have prevented that death from occurring, standing there with his arms out like this, pretending to be frisked by a teammate. Imagine that you have to go take care of her 5-year-old son because that kid's mom isn't there, right? Imagine being one of her parents and you see that happen. I would be absolutely incensed if I was them. And to me, that is the biggest issue here. And I'm sorry, John, just one more thing real quick, because I have an issue with Nate Oats' statement at the end, right? He said, I don't really know. I don't watch our introductions. I think this is something that's been going on all year, right? We've defended Alabama and we've defended Nate Oats on this program before. And the reason that we are doing it, and the reason why I have been on that angle, I don't want to speak for you, Jeff, I'm going to speak for myself here, is because we are trusting that when Alabama says they are operating in good faith, they mean it. We are trusting them when they say they're playing Brandon Miller, despite the fact that he delivered this gun to Darius Miles, right? We are trusting that they are being truthful when they say that Brandon Miller was too naive and too oblivious to realize what he was doing and the risk that he was taking when he is doing it, right? And this is not the first PR nightmare that they had. You mentioned this. Nate Oats said in a press conference, essentially, he was at the wrong place at the wrong time. And their excuse there was more or less, he didn't know. And that to me is the issue. Alabama's asking us to trust them while also saying, oh, look, our bad, we didn't know, 2 different times in the 2 biggest mistakes that they made. So if they are asking us to trust them, Do they really know what Brandon Miller's intentions were that night? That is the problem right there. All of this hinges on on our trust that what they are telling us is the absolute truth, no questions asked. And how do we know we can trust them when they have gotten two things wrong of this magnitude? That's my issue with this. You cannot get this wrong. That is unacceptable to me.
Yeah, two things. I mean, Rob, I was talking to you when I was in North Carolina. We had media sensitivity training, and we thought that was the dumbest thing we'd ever done. But it prevented situations like this from happening if something were to happen. And we know in reference to Nate Oats and Brandon Miller, this isn't your 10-decade ago Alabama. You guys are arguably the best team in the country, championship contenders. So the scrutiny is just only going to be more and more. So they completely bobbled and mishandled that situation. Even the first statement, even if Nate Oats just puts out a statement, said, I'm just gathering more information, right? Just to give him a little time. And with the frisk down, they've got to be smarter than that. They're 18-year-old kids. They're probably not even relating it to what that really means, but that's part of the program. It's part of his leaders on the team. It's part of his teammates and everyone around to nip that in the bud. So, because at the end of the day, someone did lose their life due to an action of one of your players. Now, it wasn't illegal per se, but there needs to be a little more sensitivity. There needs to be a little more intelligence in how they're handling it, and they're bobbling it right now. So hopefully they can come out. I don't know if Miller has even made a statement out yet. He probably should say something as well.
He has not. He hasn't, and you're probably right. I would say, but I'm sure his lawyers are telling him not to. They put out a statement for him, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So they've got to figure that out because this is not your run-of-the-mill Alabama anymore. You guys are one of the best teams in the country. So you will be a telescope will be on you guys from here until the end of the season. And now you got people not on your side, and that's tough as well. Even with parents and recruits, people are seeing this and how you react to certain situations, and so hopefully they figure it out. Nate Oats, go get you a PR guy. You're one of the big boys now. So you got to act like it.
Well, they weren't prepared. That's the biggest thing is you learn from mistakes, and I think they've learned that they do need a PR person that. Yes, Nate Oats probably doesn't watch pregame, but other people do. The other guys on the staff do. They got probably, three assistant coaches, an ops guy, a bunch of managers, a bunch of GAs. There's a lot of eyes on that thing that should have been able to say, hey, you know what, guys, that pregame thing you've been doing all year? No more. No more.
It can't happen. It shouldn't have happened. It never should have happened. And I think that's something that we all can agree on.